My name is Nancy Sedgwick and I'm from San Diego County. And Christine, Edgar, and I are going to spend the next section sharing some ideas with you about how to build a community of stakeholders who are willing to work collaboratively around the LCAP process to improve success for students. So with that, I'm going to turn it over.
Thanks, Nancy. As Nancy said, my name is Edgar Montez, Director within Instructional Services at the Orange County Department of Education. And the one thing that really binds us all together in the work of our districts is this incredible opportunity to tell the story of our communities, of our staff, and of course, most importantly, of our students. And this fourth year, as we kind of go through this stakeholder engagement process with our communities, is just another process to continue to get to know who it is that we support. As a former counselor myself, this concept of getting to know your community, or seeking first to understand and then to be understood, is something that I really hold dear to my heart. And I think as we really think about the process of an authentic engagement, and we'll share some resources with you, keep it in mind sort of this idea of continuing to deepen our knowledge of our stakeholders. So with the video we're going to show you in a second, John Medea, who at the time of this video is the chair of the Design Advisory Board at eBay, he's not going to share anything that's revolutionary or groundbreaking, but it's really common sense attitudes and practices of visionary leaders. And as we always know, common sense is not always common practice. Keep in mind what it is that you are already doing with your stakeholders, or what you plan to do, what you want to do with your stakeholders. So keep in mind that as we watch this video.
Well, if you think about this word storytelling, someone's telling a story, and you assume everyone's listening, like here, gather around, children, listen to me. If leaders take that stance, they're not going to succeed, because people aren't obedient children. They're not going to listen to the teacher. They're busy with their work. They're busy with their life. And so what I've seen is that a leader doesn't start with storytelling. They start with story listening. That leader has to have a command of the past of the organization, because leaders bridge the past and the future and the present. They refer to the past to enable people to feel the present and to see the future. It's not some kind of radical transformation, because we don't like change. But a great story from a leader can bring people along that path. This is how it was. And this is how it is. A little different. There were scary moments, but we got here. And this is the future. We're going to go forward. We did it before. We can do it again. When I think about the problem of working with organizations, audiences, teams, is I see little arrows on their heads, and they're all going in different directions because they have their own stuff to take care of. A leader is trying to move everyone's arrow in generally the same direction. And the way to do that is they talk about what North Pole is, North Star is. What is a story that gets everyone's arrow to point in the same direction? When you hear the word design, you'll hear the word empathy used, like within a few words of its radius. It's about how it makes you feel, how it makes me, the designer, feel. How do you feel matters more. I will only know how you feel if I've listened to you. Design tends to mean that you're not taking the linear path. We all love the linear path. It makes sense. It's the lowest path of risk. But when designers are freed to accept risk, do some things, experiment out of their comfort zone, they expand their imagination and they find a way back to the problem. It wasn't until I began to lead that did I understand how leading is a kind of design problem. I look at leading as a kind of making, as a creative problem. How to be a creative leader, I think, is the most interesting problem today for any person who's in the creative fields. What's the future of storytelling? I think it has a lot more to do with listening than storytelling. I think leaders discover so often how they can get stuck in their own story and tell a great story. There's no one listening. They may be in the room, but no one can hear them. The only way they're going to hear them is for the leader to listen to them first. Story listening has to come before leader's storytelling.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Christine Shipman, and I am a principal in residence with the San Diego County Office of Education. I'm pleased to be here with you today. We love this quote by John Maxwell, and I'm not going to read it. You're welcome to. But really what we love about this is how it relates to planning. Often in education, we think of lots of different plans and the technicalities of it. But as it comes to the local control and accountability plan, one of the things that has helped me as a leader is to reframe my thinking from the perspective of the stakeholders and thinking about the role that a plan can play in instilling hope and how that messaging can help to instill hope within our stakeholders. And so when we talk about people desiring a better tomorrow, considering from a stakeholder perspective how the LCAP planning process can actually build hope for tomorrow, build hope for the future, how listening and validating can allow our stakeholders to establish confidence and security in our leadership. And so going back to that video, just the very nature of listening and validating and understanding the history can help build relationships that set a strong foundation to build hope for the future. And that's what we're just going to be talking a little bit about today. Some of the examples that we'll be speaking to are unique to our county offices, but we're hoping that they're tools that you might consider incorporating into your own toolkit of how you already are serving your districts. So in terms of strategies to build trust with stakeholders, really what the foundation of this is thinking outside of the box when it comes to stakeholder engagement. We serve a wide range of districts. Some serve hundreds of thousands of students, and others, like we have in San Diego County, serve several dozen. So we have a wide range, but this idea of establishing trust through the way that we structure our stakeholder engagement is universal. So some of the principles and strategies that we have pulled together are just talking about the method in which we schedule our meetings. Are we considering the time of day and the venue in which we're holding our stakeholders together? Are we thinking of not just holding meetings at district office venues, but at places that are most comfortable for those that we serve? We do have several LEAs within our county that have thought about going out to the reservations because we serve a wide range of Native American populations. And for those families, they might be uncomfortable coming into the school district office, going out and holding meetings within the firehouses near the reservations and listening and being culturally responsive. Also being aware of the times of day and the ways in which we serve our stakeholders when they come in. Are we providing translation services? Are we providing childcare? Are we providing the materials in a manner that's accessible? Because sometimes lots of words on a page is a little overwhelming. Are we utilizing infographics to help communicate our message to our stakeholders? And then never underestimate the power of person-to-person communication. Sometimes it's a boots-on-the-ground type of implementation if we're trying to get stakeholders to engage with us and to build relationships and establish trust. One of the best ways that we can do it is by going in person. And so sharing that with our districts, I'm sure that many districts have some exemplar outreach strategies that they're engaging in, but sometimes reiterating these strategies just reinforces what people are already thinking about in helping to increase stakeholder engagement. Another recommendation that we frequently share with our districts is trying to avoid jargon and acronyms. We have a wonderful colleague within our communications department who will sit us down and say, okay, let me read this from a normal person perspective. Does this make sense to me? And so she'll say, what is it you're trying to say? And can we just say that? And for me, that's kind of an aha moment. Like, I want to have so much dense information, but sometimes it's that commercial. that Super Bowl 30-second spot, what's highest leverage that's going to get people to really understand my message with fewer words, more visuals. So considering that for our district. And then another strategy is including stakeholders in the development and facilitation of the meetings. When we're trying to support our LEAs, our districts, in engaging stakeholders in the community, recommending to them pulling some of those individuals in on the planning process. Having a parent member of the meeting development committee to actually look through the materials and see how that would be received. An individual from a bargaining association come in and look through the materials. Is this going to be responsive to our classified and our teaching staff? So thinking through those lenses. And then in terms of stakeholder engagement, the actual process of it, keeping focus on the students. One of the great vehicles that we have considered as a message that would really engage our stakeholders in a more authentic way is recommending to our districts how they could use the LCAP plan summary within the new template to tell the story of the district in a way that's transparent and simple. So that is one of those first components within the LCAP. How do we message? How do we tell our story? How do we help people understand what our priorities are in a way that is accessible? And then when it comes to stakeholder engagement, setting the right expectations. So we want to make sure that whatever our method is for engaging our stakeholders, that we're not overcommitting. Because when we're talking about relationship building and establishing trust, we want to be realistic. What is it that we can deliver on? What is it that we can support and engage our stakeholders with in the planning process? I'm going to pass it back to Edgar.
So some examples of that, in trying to make that, the communication piece very simple for a variety of different stakeholders, we created some documents to really ground parent communities and community stakeholders in what's most important about this process. And there are many avenues that you can take in describing the different pieces of the LCAP process, the template, but keeping it simple. And this is something we created just in terms of color coding a PowerPoint to a document that highlights the 5 most important things that they should know about the LCAP process or the LCAP itself. But not really focusing on the details, more on the concept of why we're here, why this is so important, because we can get so lost in the details of actions and services and metrics that we're using and all that stuff, and that's great stuff to have in small groups. But if you don't really remind them about why we are doing this and the purpose for this, I think you sometimes can lose the audience as to getting so lost in some of those details. So those are just some examples there, and I know that the link to those documents is in your presentation in the leader notes. Another thing we did for our districts and our district leaders was to create a central site to access all of these resources. And I know many of you have probably already done that with a Google Drive or Haiku or Google Plus page, whatever that might be. We have a resource that we wanted to share with you. We tested this out at one of our assistant superintendents meeting, where we just, instead of really presenting on the updates and all the information, we just put up a question. We said LCFF plus LCAP equals continuous improvement. How? And we just let them play with all the, and explore all the different resources going on to Simlu and other resources that we have on Google Drive, and then have them come up and present their information. And some of them did videos, others did some skits, and it was just great because it's a way to sort of digest all this new information, because everyone is at a different place. And so having these resources in a central location is a great tool. Also, we've added some additional resources about engaging communities. So there's some facilitator guides and some resources to host World Cafes, which I know a lot of you have probably already done. I'll turn it over to Nancy.
So what you're looking at right now is more a process. And it is something that we honed from several different districts in San Diego County who were doing something like this, but different districts had different parts. So we just put it together. And I would say a lot of our districts use some format of this. But the idea is that if you start on the top left, that a lot of districts do something about the LCAP at a school board meeting every month. keep the board up to date, keep the community up to date. If you're doing that, then a good next step might be to then come up with some talking points, not the whole presentation to the board, but a couple slides, a couple of talking points about the highlights, especially if it's, say, the presentation was around one goal or one priority, and then condense that down, add a couple questions that relate specifically to that, guiding questions, and put it out to, and you'll see there's two groups there. There are district people, district level staff, community, and then there's the site staff, site community, site parent groups. And then you can, and of course school site councils and ELACs and all of those important groups also. And then everybody is talking about that goal or that priority for that month, and then they're feeding that back and giving a summary, not a list that the school board doesn't want of 100 comments, but what are the highlights? What were some of the things that the stakeholders said? Feeding that back at the next board meeting, and then some then wait another month to start again, and some just then present another goal and move forward that way. The idea is that it creates a common message that's going out to all the groups, all the community. If the superintendent goes out to talk to a service club, same, the same handout, basically the same message, adapted a little bit for what they might be most interested in, but really having that be the message of the month or the message of the quarter, however you organize it. And that keeps everybody kind of on the same page, pulls the input together, and then allows people to be talking in that same kind of conversation. This is another community forum that one of our larger districts did, and I included the pictures just because if you can see them close up, the one on the left, the man standing up there, that's a school board member. And so the community forums were arranged by trustee areas. And so a board member attended every one of them. And if you look at the audience, they are students, their parents, their staff, their administrators, their district office people, their community members. And if you look at their body language, they're leaning in, they're engaged, they're asking questions, they're listening. The people presenting are the cabinet members that are responsible for each group was a goal. This is 3 different schools, or 3 different meetings. But they were clustered around the 4 LCAP goals. And they were so engaged. They were so engaged that the cabinet members, who had never experienced anything like that before, wanted to go out and do another round right away. They thought that that was just the best thing that they'd ever seen. So while they had a mixed group, at some point they started everybody together, so the parents were in one group, and the parents learned the process, they learned the guiding questions, and this is the document that they were working around. And so they learned how to read it in the first group, all the parents together, safe, and then they all started with the parent engagement goal, and talked about one that they felt comfortable with. And then the guiding questions were the same for each of the goals. So that the parents in the next round would go to another goal, then they'd be in a mixed group with students and staff, but everybody now knew the process. So the students kind of grouped together, they learned the process, the parents learned the process, and then they felt comfortable going to other goals. There was, of course, translation services available, and they had over 2,000 people, pretty well divided between the different groups, and got some really good feedback. So there's a lot of pieces to that. I think we tend to sometimes do stakeholder meetings with parents, and then we do them with students, and then we do them with teachers, and sometimes you get some really good discussions if you have different perspectives in the room.
So as we have, as a county office, been reflecting on stakeholder engagement and what it means for our districts, we started to look for trends among LCAPs and trends in comments that we were hearing from our district leaders. And a comment that we were frequently hearing was, how do we get our parent groups to move beyond saying, yes, we trust you, we agree, or just not showing up to the meetings? How do we empower them? So one of the ideas that we came up with last year, and this is now an annual event, is an empowerment event, a parent LCAP leadership network. So as a county office, one time per year, we pull together a large-scale event where we invite our district leaders, our parent engagement liaisons, and parent and community leaders to convene together at our county office And we structure a day with breakout sessions on a number of different topics. Several of those breakout sessions is focused on parents on how to ask powerful questions in the LCAP planning process. So we take a section of metrics from the LCAP and we put together some guiding question stems, and we actually practice with the parent leaders on how to ask these questions. And they sit in groups together with some of their parent engagement liaisons from their districts, and they practice. They practice asking questions and not responding, but just getting comfortable with that, asking, so I see this Healthy Kids survey data shows that kids are not feeling safe. What is the district doing around that? Feeling comfortable questioning, helping to understand the cultures that our families come from, that questioning members in a position of authority might not be something that they are as comfortable with. So helping them understand the context and the manner in which they can ask helps to empower them. So that's one of the structures that we established within that LCAP Parent Leadership Network. But another thing that we wanted to do was to connect our parents with community resources that we felt might be helpful. Since we were pulling them all together, why not? We put together a resource fair with community college representatives, with members from financial institutions that had financial literacy materials, and student services organizations. And our desire, our outcome of it, was that parents would receive information and feel more empowered to help their students. But one of the unanticipated positive ripple effects from this was that the community college district sent former students from a number of these districts to speak with the parents. So you had former students that were manning the tables, speaking with parents about what it took for them to be prepared and be successful for community college. And then parents went back and asked more informed questions in the sessions that they were in. They connected with some of their district parent engagement liaisons that were present, and that helped inform the planning process within their district. It additionally brought community members that hadn't previously engaged with our districts in that manner to now ask questions about how they, in their role, could support the LCAP planning process. We had vice chancellors from some of the community college districts sitting in the breakout sessions that came out to myself and some of our other staff members that said, we had no idea that this was a thing in education. Here's what we're doing in the community colleges. How can we help connect the dots? And by the fact that we had some district leaders and parent engagement staff members there, we were able to say, here's that person in the district, here's business cards, connect together, and now begin this different kind of a dialogue. So while we had one outcome that was planned, there were several other positive ripple effects that occurred, that this now has become an annual event that's growing to where this year we actually will be having a student voice panel as part, because districts are asking, can we bring students? Can they be part of this to learn how they can ask questions in the LCAP planning process? So again, this was just an idea to think outside of the box and how to serve our districts, but it is one that you might consider if it would fit within your local context.
So instead of inundating you with a million handouts, we're just going to direct you to our website. We've been working really hard on updating and making our websites more user-friendly and putting updated information. And so even as we speak, there are some examples that we'll be uploading in the next couple days when I get back. So obviously you can find San Diego County Office of Education. And then when you do, if you click on LCAP materials and toolkits, which I'm hoping I can do right here, you'll find here. And putting it all together is it's a 5-day spread throughout the year. We wanted to start up front with the districts about, you have a lot of change coming up this year. Our first one was in September-ish. So let's talk about what the new template's going to be like. Let's talk about what we think the rubric's going to be like. Let's talk about what the data says. So we kind of align it with the data releases. How's that going to fit into it? You're still need to do an annual update. How can we support you? So they're day-long workshops where and then we bring in experts on English learners, foster youth, the specialists from within the county office. We have districts come and talk about what they're doing and call them district spotlights. So that we've had these, we've finished the second one, the third one's in January, and we of course post all the materials so that they can go back and use any of the resources that we share with them at that. The next one is just our materials and some of the things that we put out. We have such a diverse group of districts, as Christine said, in San Diego, from one that has 37 students to San Diego Unified, huge. So we put out a lot of kind of generic pieces that they can, to help them so that they can then specialize it for their purpose. And so we have some things called process pointers. I think you have the one on stakeholder engagement in your packet. Not that it's magical, but just an idea of some of the resources that we provide around stakeholder engagement. Specifically, the chart that I showed you earlier is here, and it's not going to pop up. Oh, it probably downloaded. And then there's an example, and there will be more examples that we'll be loading. The one that I want to, wait, where'd it go? Here, no. Where is it? No, I'm looking for the strategies, the next one. I was going to show where it is, because it's on our next slide. Okay, well, somewhere in here, could be that's one of the ones that I haven't uploaded yet, but I thought I had. We have some strategies that we wanted to share with you. This is also a handout. Is that how I get back? Okay. There. It's a pink handout. And in this, we put together a variety of different protocols and processes for the districts to choose from, whatever's going to work in their local context. Some of them you've seen, you know about, town hall meetings, focus groups. Class Connections is just a way of getting at student voice by having teachers do activities in class or an open house with students and parents together around LCAP, but you don't have to call it LCAP with students. You can just say, what is your favorite thing about, and have them in their classes write about what they like about the school. So there's just different ways of connecting it to different content areas. We have two that I want to just kind of touch on briefly that are more specific in the handout. The LCAP piggyback. This works really well for our smaller districts, especially the rural ones that are really spread out. They are not likely to be motivated to come in for an LCAP meeting, especially if that's the first time they've heard of it and they don't know what that is. So what we have been talking to districts about is they'll come if you're having a holiday sing-along. They'll come if there's a report card night. They'll come to open house. You don't have to call it an LCAP meeting to get community input. So we provide little short slide sets that they can use, like what is LCAP, what does student engagement look like in the LCAP, what are metrics at. And we say just pick a topic. You've got them there for something else. Give them 5 to 10 minutes of LCAP and move on. Maybe you just ask one question. Maybe you just have them talk, and you just listen. But you can get input in a lot of different ways. So if you have problems getting them in for a specific meeting, just tag that onto other meetings. And of course, that's true of school site councils, ELACs, DLACs. We would advise that you always have LCAP on those agendas. The final one, I was hoping I would have the sample, but I don't have it yet. We have a tiny little district out in a rural area, and while her parents love the superintendent and they think the school's great, it's obviously a single school district, has like 38 kids, K-8. So, but they don't come to meetings. They're just really happy, so why would they come to a meeting? So she's going to design postcards. And because she knows her community so well, she knows where the parents hang out, where they'll go. So in the little general store, in the feed and grain store where they get stuff for their animals, in the Italian restaurant/bar across the street, she's going to leave these little self-addressed stamped postcards with a couple of questions. And ask the community to either fill them out and leave them with the person there who will then give them to her, or just pop them in the mail. And so she's going to try that this year. I think it's a clever, creative way, reaching out to sort of a community that doesn't generally gather, and hopefully it'll work. We'll let you know when we hear back. But she did promise to share the format with us. So There's details on all of those in the pink handout, and it's also on our website along with some samples of some of the other ones.
So I know we've been sharing a lot of resources with you, and in a little bit we have an activity to really hear from you as to what you're using with your stakeholders, what your districts are using. But before we get there, I know Christine mentioned the plan summary, and a great opportunity to really reframe that plan summary or an executive summary if the district is already engaged and put resources towards creating an executive summary, to really think about how to communicate and tell that story. And so there's a few tips here to really think about how to make those documents consumable to the different communities that you're working with. As Christine mentioned, the context really is really important. The content is a good piece, but understanding who it's going to is also just as important, probably more important. We have some examples, of course, here of what some of our districts have done with executive summaries. Some of them are one-pagers, or some of them are 8 pages. As County Office of Education, we're not recommending creating a separate document and a separate executive summary, but maybe creating that plan summary in an alternate format to really tell that story, but not to really recreate or put resources towards creating another document. So we want to hear from you. We know that a lot of you are doing some great things when it comes to engaging your stakeholders. And so we have this idea, or this activity, this Chalk Talk activity. If those of you that have done Chalk Talks before, the idea, the concept is really to allow folks to kind of have a free opportunity to really write whatever ideas come to mind with a question or some phrase that's posed. And so we're going to, because the audience is large and we don't have chalkboards, we're going to do a digital Chalk Talk through Answer Garden. So some of you are familiar with Answer Garden. Some of you are not. It works very similar to sort of Poll Everywhere, if you've used Poll Everywhere before. There are 2 ways to access the garden. You can click on the link, and it will take you directly to the Answer Garden that we're going to use. Or you can go to the website and search for our garden, and there's a code there, 390171, to find our garden. So I'll give you about a minute to either click on the link or to go to the website and search for our garden using the access code there. And for those of you trying to get onto the internet, if you're not familiar, up on the easels is the internet code for those of you that are just at the point of trying to log on to the internet. All right, raise of hands. Who's on the Answer Garden? Okay, about half of you are. We'll give it about another 30 seconds. If you have a partner next to you that's struggling, help them out. All right, so here's the question, and you'll also see it in the Answer Garden. What resources have you used to increase stakeholder engagement? And so I'm going to go to the garden so you can actually see the answers from your colleagues. Do this in front of you, and as you finish, we're going to take a break so that you can get some refreshments and walk around for a little bit. But make sure you put something up on the Answer Garden. So I'm going to go to that right now.